wait a little longer for GTA 6 than we expected. So in the meantime, let's run our favorite Grand Theft Auto characters through the Squid Game.
Welcome to the Squid Game. We're excited for everyone to play.
Today's roster of contestants is as follows. First, our protagonists: Claude, Tommy Vercetti, CJ, Tony Cipriani, Victor Vance, Nico Bellic, Johnny K, Luis Lopez, Michael DeSanta, the very emotionally stable Trevor Phillips, Franklin Clinton, Huang Lee from Chinatown Wars, and Mike from GTA Advance. Also from the 3D era, Catalina, Donald Love, Frank Tenpenny, Eddie Pulaski, Big Smoke, Ryder, Sweet Johnson, The Truth, Lance Vance, Ricardo Diaz, Sonny Forelli, Asuka Kaysen, Armando Mendez, Diego Mendez, Ken Rosenberg, Salvatore Leone, and Phil Cassidy. From the HD universe, we have Roman Bellic, Brucey, Little Jacob, Packy McCreary, Ray, Gay Tony, Dmitry Razklov, Lester, Roastmaster Lamar, Dave Norton, Devin West, Wade, Tracy DeSanta, and Jimmy DeSanta. And we'll also be including our newest protagonists from GTA 6, Lucia and Jason. And finally, just to change it up, from the Red Dead universe, Arthur Morgan, John Marston, Dutch Vanderland, and Micah Bell.
The following are the ground rules in this Squid Game. Number 1, no outside allies or sidekicks. 2, no outside weapons, with the sole exception of any equipment needed to survive. Number 3, no magic. 4, natural abilities are allowed. The first game is red light, green light. You may move forward when it shouts green light, stop when it shouts red light. If your movement is detected afterwards, you will be eliminated.
Speed, composure, and general athletic ability will be your best friends in this round. So with that said, we've got a lot of characters to go through, which reminds me of another game I've been playing a lot. It's a popular online RPG and has a massive roster of playable characters. You may have heard of Raid Shadow Legends. I mean, it's going strong with 5 million users, and there's never been a better time to get started, since Raid is giving away 2 epics and a legendary champion for free. Let me tell you about my favorite faction in Raid, the elusive and mysterious Sylvan Watchers. They chose the Mistwood Jungle as their home instead of building on the ground or in a cave. Their one open city, Nerissa, has forged strong alliances with the Shadowkin and Dwarves. This faction is packed with unique, nature-aligned champions. I'm a fan of Alil, Ornn, and Nia, and I wish I had them when I started. One of the reasons why Raid is so much fun is that there's so much to do. There's tons of bosses, and new content's popping up all the time, and it's fun whether you're interested in PvE or PvP, not to mention all the playable champions. I think my favorite right now is Green Warden Ruark. He's a defense-based tank and also a Sylvan Watcher. Click our link in the description or scan our QR code to get anniversary bonuses only available via our link. You'll immediately get a huge starter pack with an epic champion, Kellan the Shrike, from the Sylvan Watchers faction, and other useful things. You'll get another starter pack after reaching level 15 with epic champion Uugo. After downloading with my link, use the special promo code TreeHugger to get a legendary champion, Green Warden Ruark, from the Sylvan Watchers faction. Only for new players, 72 hours after downloading via our custom link in the description or QR code on the screen only. In addition, both new and existing players can redeem 2 more promo codes with useful resources. Check other promo codes for all users in the description. Come find me under the name 1UpBinge Kyle and join my clan 1UpBinge. Thank you again, Raid Shadow Legends, for sponsoring us today. Now let's get back to our games. And right off the bat, I feel like it's only fair to say that every playable protagonist would survive this round. Usually we wouldn't be so generous, but this is GTA we're talking about. Almost every character in this franchise has either committed murder, witnessed murder, or at least been somewhat adjacent to it. It would be a shock if any of them were caught off guard, and they're all athletic enough to make it to the end. So let's talk about other winners. Big Smoke, Ryder, and Dmitry were all level-headed enough to successfully fool powerful allies, at least for a time. We also have to mention characters in high positions like Tenpenny. As awful as he is, his high-stakes job means he has plenty of experience chasing down criminals and dodging gunfire. Plus, this guy's a sociopath, and we don't think any violence is going to catch him off guard. And finally, while he'd normally be the first one to go due to his disability, Michael's friendship with Lester would get him through this round. You can say a lot of bad stuff about Michael, but he's loyal when it matters most. Well, maybe not so much with Trevor, but come on. I think he kind of had every right to keep that man away from his family. But now let's get to the losers. If Patrick Star was a GTA character, he would be Wade. So yeah, I think that pretty much explains why he would be the first one to go.
Player eliminated.
This guy's so dumb he'd probably get confused by the rules in this one. Or drop a piece of candy and go back to get it during a red light.
Are we gonna stop for ice cream?
There's no way he's surviving. Now, while most of these characters are pretty level-headed, Ken Rosenberg is one of the likeliest to absolutely lose it. He's an absolute legend of a lawyer, but staying calm under pressure is not his strong suit. Between his major anxiety and love for nose candy, the moment that first gunshot goes off, he'd rightly try to escape, and sadly be eliminated as a result. The same fate awaits Michael's kid, Tracy.
Player, you have been eliminated.
While we do feel for her, she is spoiled rotten and an airhead, and also doesn't seem to do well under pressure. She'd be freaking out at the first sign of danger, running away as soon as it all hits the fan. We think, despite being a goof, Jimmy would be the sibling that would just eke by in this round with the help of his dad. Of course, some of the other characters might not be taking the games as seriously as they should. The Truth may be able to keep his cool, but that's because he's an elderly hippie with a massive weed farm. He's almost definitely high for about 100% of his screen time.
Mushrooms, loons? How about some DMT?
There's no way he'd be able to take this game seriously, and he doesn't seem fit enough to make it to the end of the finish line in time either.
Player, you have been eliminated.
And finally, Salvatore Leone is, well, he's a fat old man.
Player eliminated.
He's scary because he has the mob behind him, but not much else.
45 out of 50 players remain. Let's move on to the next game, Honeycomb. Players must cut out the shape from their cookies. Those who break their cookie or run out of time will be eliminated.
Patience, steady hands, and calmness under pressure is what you need here, as well as general resourcefulness and creativity. Once again, the protagonists are all in pretty good shape for a win here, since being skilled with weapons is basically a requirement for a GTA protagonist. For characters who have been through as much as, say, Niko Bellic, this game wouldn't be too far out of their comfort zone. The same can be said for his cousin Roman. I mean, sure, he's not a master criminal, but he's always ready to go bowling or play darts with you. Doing well at games like that takes some strong and steady hands, as does hacking, something Lester has plenty of experience with. We're also going to give Jimmy another W here too, because he spends a lot of time playing video games. And those steady hands will go a long way when it comes to cutting the cookie. And you know what else takes steady hands? Torture. Which is a bit of a jump, but it's exactly why sadomasochist Asuka is a surefire winner this round. Trevor may be an absolute psychopath who could fly off the handle at any moment. Don't tell him we said that. But his dumb luck and his ability to do sickening things without breaking a sweat, including but not limited to torture, gives him a pretty solid advantage in this round. Unfortunately, Phil Cassidy is at a bit of an objective disadvantage here, and I'll let you guess why.
Player eliminated.
And a less obvious loser in this round is Ricardo Diaz, who's known for making some rash decisions when things don't go his way. Every time we see him in Vice City, he's completely losing his cool.
Player eliminated.
Arguably though, an even more dangerous trait to have in this game is insecurity. Gay Tony is one of the most obvious examples of this, with his egotistical persona being more of a front for how neurotic he is.
Player, you have been eliminated.
And while he'd never admit his insecurity, we also have to point out Ryder as well. He's not stupid or even weak, he's just so dead set on seeing himself as better than everyone around him. He might pick the star because he sees himself as one. And all the weed smoking and PCP use would not make carving out that cookie an easy process.
Player eliminated.
Eddie Pulaski is another right-hand man who's both more arrogant and less level-headed than his partner. He definitely would have pissed off a few players already, and would probably try to sabotage some others just for fun. And we think somebody would convince him to take the umbrella just out of spite.
Player eliminated.
And finally, Lance has a habit of not thinking about the consequences of his actions, and we're sure he'd come up with some underhanded way to try and win without playing by the rules, which the workers would not take kindly to.
Player eliminated. 39 players remain. It's time for our next game, Six-Legged Pentathlon. The rules are as follows. Players will split up into groups of 5, tie their legs together, and move in tandem around a track. Every 10 meters, one player will play a mini-game until it is completed, with each member playing once. The goal is to complete all games in the allotted time, repeating each one until it is complete.
So here are the mini games. Diaki, throw a paper tile at the ground to flip over another paper tile. Flying Stone, throw a small stone at another small stone to knock it down. Gongji, a traditional game of Korean jacks. Spinning Top, and Jegi, where you kick this thing in the air 5 times in a row, kinda like hacky sack. Balance, composure, and most importantly, general gaming prowess are the most important characteristics in this game. That is, for those popular enough to find a team in the first place. Teamwork is important, and this will be the point of the game where alliances and teams start to be formed. But honestly, a lot of them were made already. CJ and Sweet, Nico and Roman, and the Mendez brothers have familial ties that would make them strong foundations for their teams. Mike, Trevor, and Franklin would probably work together as well since they're at least somewhat used to each other, plus Jimmy, obviously, and Mike would probably insist on bringing Lester on board too. Truly an inspiration to wheelchair-bound Squid Game players everywhere. While not every character has pre-established allies to work with, plenty of them would have means of persuading others to team up with them. Catalina is a femme fatale in the purest sense of the term, so she'd surely be able to seduce some guys into teaming up with her. Devin Weston's business experience would probably secure him a good team too. It would definitely help to be able to offer your teammates some payment later on, whether or not you intend to follow up on the offer. And despite how utterly depraved he is, Donald Love is able to keep up a pretty clean public image. So at least for now, he'd be able to secure a team for himself. We actually think most of the characters would be able to win these games, given what they've all gone through. That just leaves us with the characters who aren't able to secure a team. For obvious reasons, I don't think anyone's going to be eager to team up with local corrupt police officer Frank Tenpenny.
Player eliminated.
Similarly, Dave Norton is out too.
Player, you have been eliminated.
While he's the kind of corrupt Fed who works with the bad guys, he isn't quite as physically capable as most of the other players in the running. And how much can you really trust a Fed? And finally, Brucey had to refuse to play in this game on principle.
Player eliminated.
Because being tied to another dude would be gay, after all. And if you know one thing about Brucey, it's that he is 100% straight and not gay.
36 players remain. Our next game is Mingle. Here are the rules. Players will stand on a rotating platform in the center of a large circular room. At any given moment, a number will be called out, at which point players have 30 seconds to get into groups of said number and secure a room for themselves. Any player who does not find a room with the correct number of players will be eliminated.
Observational skills, strategic prowess, likability, and even physical strength are your best friends here. And since this is GTA, almost everyone is going to be willing to throw others under the bus to secure their spot in the next round. Lucia is a character we don't know much about yet, but she's shaping up to be a pretty awesome protagonist. Even her backstory on the GTA 6 website says her dad taught her to fight as soon as she could walk. She's been fighting since she was a toddler. What's a few more rounds at that point? She's also more likable, it seems, than half the people here at least, meaning she won't be the first one booted from a team when the numbers don't line up. The Mendez brothers are also tailor-made for this round. They'd be ready for that infamous two-phase, but even outside of that, their experience working as the faces of the Mendez cartel tells us they've gotten plenty of folks out of their way before. And of course, characters with physical combat prowess are in strong standing here. Tommy, Victor, Tony Cipriani, and Trevor all come to mind as formally trained killers even without the use of weapons. And honestly, Trevor would probably just grab the number of people he needs on his team 2 at a time and drag them into his room with him. Sonny Forelli would probably die here.
Player eliminated.
He's sort of intimidating, but he's also short-tempered and ruthless, and very untrustworthy and unlikable. Without weapons or influence, nobody's gonna want to team up with this guy. And an even more certain elimination this round is Micah Bell.
Player eliminated.
The Vanderlyn gang may have been able to carry him last round since it was convenient for them, but if anyone's getting kicked to the curb from that gang this round, it's Micah. Even Dutch, who's sided with him in the past, when put in a group with Arthur and John, Micah's definitely the odd man out. Sadly, Lester is down for the count too.
Player eliminated.
We're sure Michael would try to help him out, but everyone's favorite meth-loving psychopath would make it pretty difficult for him to do so. He'd almost certainly drag Michael into a room at the last second, leaving Lester absolutely screwed. And Michael pretty damn angry. On a similar note, Franklin would lose Lamar in this round.
Player eliminated.
Since Lamar is admittedly one of the more airheaded players left in the running, and would probably be tripped up by one of the more ruthless players like Trevor. And at last, we've arrived at the first protagonist eliminations. Granted, they are the most forgettable protagonists, Wang Li and Mike, and not that Mike, the one from GTA Advance.
Players eliminated.
Both of these two are strong in their own right, but compared to the other characters in the running, we just think they fall a bit too short. And if that's not enough to tick you off, don't worry, because Nico Bellic is out too.
Player eliminated.
And it's a shame, really, because Nico's probably the GTA protagonist with the best moral compass. Granted, that bar is not set too high. He'd at least be hesitant to push weaker players out of the way to save himself, but he'd definitely draw the line at his cousin Roman. If it came down to only one of them being able to survive, we think Nico would be willing to lay down his own life. Packy's withdrawals would probably be hitting him hard by this point.
Player eliminated.
And that might lead to him acting carelessly, so he's down for the count too. Which, based on some of his dialogue, he might not even mind too much. In fact, being friends with Nico, he'd probably use his loss to ensure that Dimitri wouldn't find a room in time either.
Player eliminated.
If he's gonna die, he might as well take that double-crossing dirtbag with him. And on a similar note, Big Smoke's disloyalty and bigness marks the end of his time in the Squid Game too. He's definitely not in the best shape to be running for his life, and his untrustworthy nature means he'd be the last guy you'd want to stick with in the game. And also, Ray is the kind of guy even the other villains would be wary of by this point.
Player eliminated.
And since he mostly relies on others to do his dirty work, this is where he'd likely be taken out of the running. So we've just about reached our halfway point, which means it's time to recap the surviving contestants. Claude, Tommy, CJ, Tony, Victor, Johnny, Luis, Michael, Trevor, Franklin, Catalina, Donald Love, Sweet, Asuka, Armando, and Diego Mendez, Roman, Little Jacob, Devin, Lucia, Jason, Arthur Morgan, John Marston, and Dutch Vanderlyn.
25 players remain. Congratulations to everyone who made it this far. Now it's time for everyone to get some rest. Lights out.
But they won't in fact be getting some rest. Tensions are high, alliances are straining, and people are this close to snapping. So it's time for good old-fashioned Brawl. Now, a lot of these guys are super strong, so let's get right into the unluckiest of the bunch. Michael would actually be one of the most mentally unstable players at this point. I mean, he literally watched one kid die in the first round, and his good friend dies in the previous round. The guy's pissed, and he'd be ready to mess Trevor up for screwing over Lester.
Twat!
But unfortunately for him, Trevor is just, he's insane. I don't think we can describe what he does to Michael here without being demonetized, so let's just move on. And on that note, we also think Jimmy would be gone here too.
Player eliminated.
Not necessarily by Trevor, but without his dad around, he's gonna get picked off pretty quickly. Being the sicko that he is, at least Donald Love won't have to be worried about food. After all, there are still 23 full-course meals in the running. And we feel like his victim of choice would be Roman, since he's relatively high protein. An easy target. Unfortunately, Donnie here wouldn't be able to enjoy his supper because little Jacob would be more than eager to avenge his buddy and his cousin. And he's just unassuming enough to catch the hunger-stricken Donald off guard.
Player eliminated.
Dutch is out too.
Player, you have been eliminated.
He's not as strong as Arthur or John, and those two are probably smart enough to get him out of the running before he kills both of them, as much as it may hurt.
Just need money. One more decent take and we're gone. I got some jelly beans. Like jelly beans?
And finally, Devin probably has a target on his back at this point as well.
Player eliminated.
And he's basically up against a bunch of aggressive psychopaths.
Good morning, players. 19 players remain. It's time for the next game, Marbles. You will play the game of your choice with your partner. The player to take all 10 marbles wins. The loser will be eliminated.
You know the round. Be good at games or be good at manipulation. So let's see who's teamed up with who. CJ would be up against Sweet. Ah shit, here we go again. Oh, actually, this is a first. CJ and Sweet aren't model citizens by any means, but they do have genuine love and care for each other. Even so, Sweet does hold a bit of animosity towards CJ throughout the game and tends to think pretty highly of himself. CJ wouldn't hate winning this game, but sometimes life is just cruel like that.
Player eliminated.
Armando versus Diego. Now, the Mendez brothers are a different story, mostly because we don't know much about their relationship. That said, we're gonna give the win to Armando this round, just because he seems to be a little more evil on screen than Diego.
Player, you have been eliminated.
When it comes to Arthur and John, while both of them are capable of doing heinous things and facing death on a regular basis, Arthur just barely loses this round. John has a lot more to lose, and Arthur would probably jump at the opportunity to die for a friend as a sort of atonement for the life he'd lived.
Player, you have been eliminated.
Trevor ate all of Franklin's marbles while he wasn't looking.
Player eliminated.
While we don't know much about Lucia and Jason, Lucia seems like the more unpredictable of the two and would likely be a few steps ahead. The GTA 6 website states that Lucia is ready to change the odds in her favor no matter what it takes, and meeting Lucia could be the best or worst thing that's ever happened to Jason. So we think that Lucia would be the one to walk away here.
Player, you have been eliminated.
Catalina and Asuka would team up, and Asuka is implied to be into the character Maria, so given Catalina's sadism and penchant for seduction, we think she'd be able to hit Asuka in her weak spot.
Player eliminated.
Claude and Victor are both somewhat level-headed and strong, and since Claude can't talk, they would keep things simple. Whether he used deception or pure skill, that unpredictability would lead Claude to victory against the guy literally named Victor.
Player eliminated.
Now, little Jacob is so chill that others forgot he was there, so he's safe by proxy. Then Then it comes down to Tommy Vercetti versus Tony Cipriani. And look, I have a hard time believing Tommy Vercetti would lose to mommy issues Tony. Tommy's smart enough to build his own empire in Vice City, and his resourcefulness would definitely beat out Tony's, no doubt.
Player eliminated.
Then there's Luis versus Johnny K. This one is close, since these two are both pretty perceptive due to their lifestyles. Luis is a stoic bodyguard and Johnny is a skilled biker. It's a close call, but Johnny just barely surpasses Luis in terms of level-headedness. He's not the type to take any risks, so he'd play as carefully as possible.
Player, you have been eliminated. Only 14 players remain. It's time to move on to our penultimate game, Glass Stepping Stones. In this game, players will select numbers that determine the order in which they play.
The game is to cross a bridge made of 2 rows of glass tiles. One will break, the other will not. Unfortunately for those who picked low numbers, they'll basically be cannon fodder. Having a big ego would be your downfall in this game, since going first makes you less of a competitor and more of a test monkey to see which tiles are safe. And real quick, let's see who's still standing. CJ, Armando, John Marston, Trevor, Lucia, Catalina, Claude, Little Jacob, Tommy Vercetti, and Johnny. Now, John Marston is a lot of things, but a disrespecter of women he is not. He'd gladly allow Catalina to go first, which the latter would immediately cuss him out for.
Player eliminated.
Of course, John's level-headedness would mean he wouldn't put too much thought into what number he chose.
Player, you have been eliminated.
And that goes double for Little Jacob, who would probably just take whatever was left.
Player eliminated.
Lucia also seems reckless enough to go sooner than later.
Player eliminated.
It's certainly coming down to the wire now. Armando, Claude, and CJ all seem to be characters who play it safe whenever possible, so they would most likely pick a number near the middle.
Players eliminated.
And that leads us to our final 3. Tommy Vercetti, Johnny Klebitz, and good old Trevor Phillips. So we're left with 3 players and...
Shit! Who the f*** are you speaking to? Who? I'm talking to you!
Like I was saying, we're left with 2 players.
With that, we've reached our final 2. Congratulations to Trevor Phillips and Tommy Vercetti. It's now time for the final round. Prepare for Squid Game.
The rules are somewhat simple. In this round, 2 people face off. One defends and the other attacks. The attacker must reach the squid's head and touch it with their foot before getting completely obliterated. Normally, it's a battle of wits and strength, but we're talking about Trevor Phillips and Tommy Vercetti, so chaos is probably the only rule. Trevor is unpredictable, unhinged, and just violent enough to make a wrecking ball look like a teddy bear. Just don't expect any strategy beyond pure rage and aggression. But Trevor's flaw is his brain doesn't exactly slow down when he's angry. He's got a short fuse that could turn any minor inconvenience into a full-scale apocalypse. Then there's Tommy Vercetti, the man who's calculated but still gets himself into a lot of messes. And let's not forget, he's also capable of great violence. Tommy's been to the top, lost it, and somehow came back with a more intense, sarcastic swagger than ever. Think of Tommy as the kind of guy who seems calm until he makes you regret not getting the jump on him. He's got enough tactical experience to make your head spin, but also a track record for pissing people off without a second thought. So Tommy's cool-headed enough to keep his temper in check most of the time. Unlike Trevor, Tommy's not about to go diving off the deep end into reckless mayhem. We think on paper Trevor should wipe the floor with Tommy. But there's one big problem with Trevor's plan. Tommy is just too damn good at keeping his cool and exploiting other people's weaknesses. Though one thing is for certain, Trevor would absolutely hate Tommy's shirt. I don't know why, but it would definitely piss him off to the point of acting too recklessly. And in the end, we'd have to give the win to the methodical Tommy Vercetti.
With that, congratulations to Tommy Vercetti. You have won the Squid Game.
Thank you again, Raid Shadow Legends, for sponsoring us today. Don't forget to use our link in the description or scan our QR code to get insane bonuses for new players with 2 epic champions and 1 legendary.